Hello everybody. So today we're going to look at one of my all-time classics, a multimeter video. Right now what you're seeing is my all-time favorite multimeter, and as a lot of you know, I've owned many multimeters in my life. This one has sort of topped the list for me because it does everything I need and doesn't have any of the features that I don't need, so nothing is wasted, and I like the size and the form factor of this. It works well for me. A lot of people say 177, 179. I like them as well. They're also brilliant meters. But for me, this has always just been the right sort of size point. They sell secondhand in the same sort of price range as the 177 and 179. So if it is a 177 or 179 you want, get one of those or get one of these. For me, this is just my all-time favorite. But the reason for this video is quite simply because I recently acquired another Fluke, very similar to the 117 being my current favorite, and that is this 114 over here. So I thought, well, let's do a bit of a video about this so that I can show people what the key differences are between these two meters. For all intents, they look kind of the same, and I've just been inside the 114. The guts are pretty much the same. I think a lot of the limitations come in the actual hardware lockouts and not necessarily in the software. Like you'll see, this has got the current and then the volt alert. But if you have a look, the current from the diode, actually, diode capacitance, amps, AC, amps DC, the second function, hertz capacitance is not available on this meter. But again, this is a mechanical lockout, so I think electrically both meters are probably very similar in the way that they function. So what you'll notice immediately between the two, they both start off with the auto volts, LOZ, or low impedance auto voltage, so that's good for getting rid of ghost voltages. Then of course we've got volts AC, both have the volts AC. One thing you'll notice when you turn them on is they do seem to have different firmware versions, and I think that'll attest to itself here, where this has got the hertz as a second function. This one doesn't in fact have that option. Then you've got your volts DC. We have them almost the same. Then you've got your millivolts AC, second function, millivolts DC, all pretty much the same again. And then you've got your ohms on both of them, identical. Last but not least, you've got your sort of low impedance or low ohms up to 600 ohms. This is your continuity tester, both again identical, and this is where the 117 sort of takes over. From here you've got your diode test, your capacitance test, you've got your amps AC and your hertz for your AC amps, and you've got your amps DC, and then you've got this volt alert sensor over here with the red light. So there are a few key differences between the two, and again both got backlight. The 117 is just a lot newer than the 114. The 117 I've had for some time. The 114 is sort of a rebuild that I've just done, which was being turfed out, and I got it into this sort of condition, but it is still a bit scratched up. But otherwise still decent. Now, so far as what I mentioned about electrically, they seem very similar. Is when I was working inside the 114, I noticed that it had the third terminal. It just didn't have on the casing the third terminal, but the contact was there. The screw point standoff was there. Everything was there. And then I noticed on the switch that it had sort of two little pins that stop it from proceeding any further. So yeah, electronically I think it's the same board, probably different software on the two meters, but for all intents and purposes the same physical hardware. Now I don't know what the price difference is between these two. Like I say, I haven't purchased in a long time, but I would suspect the 117 to be substantially more expensive, and I still prefer the 117 is my favorite true RMS multimeter. The 114 is also a true RMS tester, so both of them will sort of get you the same results if you're just doing AC, DC, ohms, etc. But if you're needing current, then of course the 117. Bearing in mind, if you're looking for electronics, yep, sure, this current would come in handy. If you're trying to go more for electrical work, as in industrial electrical or domestic electrical, this 10 amps is not going to be sufficient for a lot of work that you're going to be doing, and you'd be better off with a clamp meter anyway. So in my opinion, 117, a great electronics multimeter, the 114, a great electrical multimeter, alongside a current clamp, so that you can get the current side of things done. And then I think you'd be good to go with a 114 and a nice little current clamp meter or an AC clamp meter. You'd be good for most tasks. And if you do work DC, like battery arrays, inverters, etc., then get an AC DC clamp meter, and then you'll be good to go. Again, the 10 amps on this limitation would not be sufficient for a lot of that sort of work, which we're talking massive DC currents, sometimes in excess of 100 amps. So 10 amps is definitely not going to suffice. So you'd still need something like a clamp meter to get the job done. So there's the key differences. Size identical, everything more or less identical electronically, very similar, some slight differences in the measuring capabilities of the two units, but besides that, yeah, they're still both great meters. Electronics 117, electrical 114, just my opinion. Cheers for now.